Hi, my name is Jeff Janousek. I'm 35 years old and I'm a native of Boise, Idaho. For the past 2.5 years, I've been a biology student at the College of Western Idaho. For the past 3 or 4 years, I've been a student brewer, and I've actually made some pretty good products. According to microbiology and introduction, fermentation is a metabolic process of all cells that takes place in the absence of oxygen. Now, fermentation is the process that actually creates the alcohol in wine or beer or other hard liquors. In order for fermentation to occur, you need to have a base sugar, and in the case of beer, that would be a ground up grain. For wines, we use grapes or other fruit sugars, and this, my favorite, is mead, which is wine that is made out of simple honey. So to start off, I take anywhere from 5 to 15 pounds of honey, depending on how sweet I want my mead to be, and I put it in a large stainless steel vat and then boil it to kill off all the other microbes in the must, to make sure that no other infections occur, because fermentation is required to make the alcohol, but if other microbes get into the mead, it will actually turn the alcohol into acid, which is where we get vinegar, which is not good unless you want to use the vinegar for things like pickles or making yogurt. After I get everything sterilized and I get my honey mixture made, I take my standard yeast culture, which I actually like to buy all of mine prepackaged. This is specifically for a sweet mead, which means it has a very low alcohol tolerance, and once the alcohol hits a certain level, it will actually cause all of the yeast to go dormant or even die. So these packages actually have all of the nutrients that are required for the yeast to multiply and then start to ferment into alcohol. So before the yeast will actually start fermenting the alcohol, there's a certain amount of oxygen that's already in the mixture, and that oxygen is going to be used in the yeast cell walls in order for it to create more yeast cells. Once it starts growing, there will actually be a heavy layer of yeast cells on the very bottom of the carboy, and once it has managed to suck all the oxygen out of the mixture, then it goes to fermentation because there is no oxygen anymore, and instead of just producing normal carbon dioxide and stuff, it will be again creating the alcohol and will be releasing carbon dioxide. As soon as the fermentation starts to occur, you'll actually see lots of little bubbles coming up through the mixture, and this airlock here, which keeps other stuff from getting down into the mixture, will start releasing bubbles at a rapid rate. Once the fermentation has really kicked up, it will typically take anywhere from 3 to 5 weeks for it to go through the process, and it will actually eat most of the simple sugars out of the mixture until the yeast has nothing left to eat, or the alcohol level gets to a certain level and, like I said, shuts down its metabolism and kills off the yeast. At that point, I take a clay, it's called bentonite, mix it into the mixture, and the bentonite actually has a static charge to it, and it attaches to the yeast cells and other big proteins in the mixture and causes it all to fall down to the bottom. And once that has occurred, usually taking a few days, I use a siphon to actually suck all of the mead out to make sure that none of those particles or none of the yeast is still in the mixture. Once I get it into the second carboy, I'll actually let it sit and age, and then the rest of the particles will settle to the bottom, and I'll actually do a second racking to help clarify it a little bit more. And at that point I can either leave it in the carboy and let it age like I'm doing with this batch, or I can go ahead and bottle it. And once it's bottled, of course, we have a nice little beverage. This is actually a sweet mead. It's a dessert mead. So the actual fermentation, which surprisingly we actually have occur in our own cells, is both a good and a bad process. In biomedical and food processing, it's a good process because we can actually use lactic acid fermentation or alcohol fermentation to make foods, to break down things like oil spills or other contaminants, to create yogurt with lactic acid fermentation. When we don't want fermentation to occur is, say, after we actually have like maybe a hard workout, when you're done, your body has actually used up all of the glucose, simple sugars in your cells, and created enough lactic acid that is actually what causes your body to be sore. And so at that point you really just want to drink water, have a nice meal, rest a little bit, and then your body will expel all that lactic acid through your skin or through your urine, and you will not be sore anymore. So the next time that you're having a nice beverage, if you're into that, or having some yogurt, think of the nice little yeast cells that have helped make that possible, and enjoy the process. Thank you.